We begin with what's being called the strongest condemnation yet from Chinese authorities of international response to the detention of 2 Canadians. China is accusing Canada and some of its global partners of hypocrisy and double standards on human rights. We have Sofia Jurkstovich following the story for us and joins us here on set. So, Sofia, let's start first with China's comments about this country.
Yes, I'm definitely going to get to some of the specifics of that. But as you mentioned, China definitely accusing Canada of double standards when it comes to the arrest of a senior executive of Huawei, Meng Wanzhou, who, of course, was arrested on December 1st, but since has been released on a $10 million bail. Now, China first criticizes Canada for the arrest, as they call it, an illegal detainment of Wanzhou, as she has not violated any Canadian law, that it is an arbitrary detention. And they are, and by the way, I'm paraphrasing here, calling it a so-called legal obligation to fulfill bilateral extradition treaties with the U.S. Secondly, they defend their arrest of 2 Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, and in a statement made by a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson earlier today, she said this: Canadians Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor are suspected of endangering China's state security. Of course, compulsory measures were taken by China's relevant authorities according to law. China's relevant authorities have protected their legitimate and lawful rights in line with law and performed our consular obligations. Now, in regards to Kovrig, John, we heard from his employer from the International Crisis Group last week that he has been denied access to a lawyer, and since then we have not heard if that has been resolved, if he's had access, or what the status on that currently is.
Okay, so Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland has reached out to allies, and they have in part responded, and China had something to say about that as well.
Yes, so the allies, the US, the UK, and the EU recently did issue statements of support of Canada, but in the same statement that we were talking about that was released just earlier this morning, issued today by Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, China accused Britain and the European Union of hypocrisy, saying their human rights have double standards, highlighting that those allies did not mention Wanzhou's arrest in Canada, asking where Britain and the EU were, why they didn't speak up when Canada arrested Wanzhou at the request of the United States. I'm going to show you a little bit more of that statement. Regarding support of Britain and the European Union to Canada, which you had mentioned, I think that is strange. What has this got to do with Britain and the EU? When the Canadians illegally detained a senior executive at a Chinese company at the request of the United States, where were they? Their so-called human rights have different standards for different countries' citizens. Now, Canada's allies spoke to Canada's conduct in the past weeks, saying that it is legitimate and fair and transparent, while the UK suggested that there were concerns of political motivation, John, behind China's actions in the arrest of those 2 Canadians that we mentioned.
Thanks, Sofia.
You're welcome.